Hello.
Can't hear you yet. One sec. Oh, that's my fault. Hey, Damien.
Hey, man. Hey, Zach. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It is 10:30 at night. I've just brushed my teeth, and but this is our timing workout, so it's good. It's morning for
Just
you, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm my brain's not working yet, so hopefully I can snap that into action pretty quick. I
Yeah.
just woke up like 15 minutes ago.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, good
Yeah,
morning.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to
Cool.
be here.
Yeah. So what's going on? What's alive in your world right now? You've been like super active. I see you write something like every day.
Yeah, it's kind of my obsession. I'm actually quite addicted to it. It's
Uh-huh.
yeah, I just things pop into my head about I talk about masculine and feminine and how to build healthy relationships. And things just pop into my head
Mm,
and I need to write them down. I just need
mm,
to write them down. And it's actually kind of a problem for me because, I'll make one big post a day about it,
mm.
but a lot more than one thing pops into my head every day. So it's like,
Huh.
no, I have other things to do. I have to I actually have like a farm kind of thing that I'm building here, and
Huh.
now I have a private group that I'm working into, and just so many things that I need to be doing. But I just want to post, I want to write, I want to create this stuff for people because it's so helpful, and it's so fun to talk about.
What what is it that like drives it to pop into your head? Like what happens when it pops into your head? Like what do you think is the impulse that's causing you to be so obsessed, that's causing this to happen? It's causing you to want to engage this so deeply.
So a few things. So I'm like a really conceptual person.
Uh-huh.
And, like I've built this model of masculine, feminine dynamics and like relationship dynamics where it's this, you know, beautiful, mutually respectful, mutual love based relationship of, like a masculine man devoting himself and leading his woman, and a feminine woman submitting to that devoted leadership and expressing herself without trying to get an outcome, but just expressing her feelings and her needs, which compels a man to want to meet them, right, without her having to try to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this. Like I started getting into it just over a year ago, but there's still things where like kind of new connections just build in my head. Like someone asks a question and I'm like, I think about that and I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. I didn't think about this. And then I need to write it down. I need to get it out of my head and build it. And build it for myself and build it for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of that is just I just love helping people, and I love that my words have helped people so much and actually transformed many people's lives um, in such an amazing way. And just like I want to do that more. I just love
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Is it like I heard like you said kind of you're having these kind of like downloads, I fucking hate the word, but you're having like insights or conceptual linkages are happening inside your mind, and you're like, okay, wow, or someone asks a question, it prompts this kind of like explosion into this new idea,
Yeah,
and or a new kind of piece of this map that's kind of unfolding, that you're unfolding this map that's built on this premise of a devotional man and a submissive woman, and
yeah.
that kind of dynamic. And then you say like it's like you get that kind of new insight, and then you also reference like you have to build it for yourself. I wonder like how that plays in your own life, like how interwoven is this journey for yourself?
Oh, it's really interwoven.
Yeah.
I started it a year ago in my I was learning in my marriage because
Mm.
my relationship was always pretty good. Like I would say relatively. Oh, let me just
Yeah, I realized, oh, turn the notifications off.
yeah, I don't want those happening. I'll be
Yeah,
getting a lot of those, so better get rid of them now.
I remember just like, oh, I forgot to do that too. I tend to forget that all the time.
Oh, one sec here.
Sure.
Okay. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. So started over a year ago, or just about a year ago, where I started learning about this in my marriage. And you know, we had our problems, right? And the biggest thing by far was, you know, we would butt heads all the time, right? And she, like, you know, my wife had needs. This is so common in like so many relationships, right? My wife had needs, and the way that she would communicate those needs is in, you know, I would call it like with masculine energy, right? With you know, sometimes like telling me what to do, like that's usually what it was, right? Like telling me or asking me, which is also a masculine way of communicating.
Or criticizing you when you're not doing it.
Of course, absolutely, right? And because this is, you know, women haven't been taught to express themselves this way, and in fact, it's usually the opposite, where they are judged for expressing in a feminine way, usually like when they're really young children, and then they learn to express their needs in a masculine way, you know, which is great in business, it's great for your job, all that kind of stuff, but in a relationship with a man, it doesn't work, because a man doesn't like being like treated that way, talked to that way. It feels like it's disrespectful, even if it's asked like really nicely. It doesn't feel good, because a man needs to lead, like a devoted man needs to lead for his woman. He needs to have that sense of leadership and respect and all that. And so she wasn't doing that, and then I wasn't really being the man that she needed either, right? And you know, a lot of that was because of the way that she was communicating, but you know, it's also was because of me, right? Like we found each other and were attracted to each other for a reason. And you know, it's a co-creation. It's always a co-creation of what we're getting. And so, you know, I wasn't stepping up in a lot of ways. I wasn't stepping up as the leader that she needed. You know, like she was the one that was paying bills, like you know, I was paying my share, but she was doing that kind of thing, right? Which is a more masculine thing to take charge of. So I kind of let her do that, because I didn't want to. I was just kind of lazy, and I didn't feel that feeling of like, oh, I want to do this for her. I want to do this for my woman. So this caused all these kind of conflicts that would just come up, and I as a man didn't know how to deal with it. You know, I would just get angry. My like inner child would get really defensive, and like I feel criticized, and like, why are you treating me this way? And I would just, you know, lash back or just like retreat and be like, I just don't want to deal with this. And yeah, so that's where it started, and it's been a huge journey for me and for my wife, where we have just changed so much with the way that we interact with each other and respond to each other, and just the dynamic, which is still shifting today, right? Like it's still part of my daily journey, our daily journey. And so throughout that that process, there'll just be things that kind of pop into my head where like you know, I'll lead in a certain way, and like I'll understand her better, and like she'll tell me things that I didn't realize. And then that kind of builds into the framework too, where it's like, because I just have this model, right? It's a conceptual model, a you know, what do you call it? Like a dualistic model, right? Like it's really black and white, the masculine and feminine, and how they integrate into each other. And so, yeah, the insights for me don't just come from my writing and from people like my followers. They also come from my own relationship, where I put this stuff into practice, and it's just like, oh, wow, this is so cool. I want to tell everybody about it, because this could help them in their relationship as well.
So what does it look like with you and your wife now? Like, how do you relate? How do you interact?
So the biggest thing that I really want to focus on with their interaction, because this is the core of what I teach, and it's the core issue in every relationship, is how we're relating increasingly with anything, with how do I explain it? With getting both of our needs met. So well, first of all, when there's okay, way I'll put it is, before a year ago, when there was any kind of conflict, or there was any kind of, my wife would be upset about something, right? And I would just kind of get criticized, judged back, whatever. My thing now, the dynamic now is I am leading her towards expressing her feelings in a feminine way, in a way that I can receive as a man, and feel compelled to be like, oh, I want to do something about this if it's something that needs to be done. So, she might, be reactive, and like I can feel that negativity and anger somewhere in her, right? And so my first thing I'll ask is like, how are you feeling right now? Right? I'm not doing a judgment. I'm not like angry about it. I genuinely want to know, because I know that somewhere in there, even though, she might be blaming in some way, I know that I've hurt her. She feels disrespected or unappreciated or whatever it is that's going inside her heart. And I need her to express it, right? Because that expression is, she's being vulnerable. And actually, when a woman expresses herself from a place of vulnerability and just talks about the feelings, like saying, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever, she's now taking full responsibility for that feeling. Instead of just, like blaming with judgments, like, why did you do this? Like this is wrong. You're bad for doing this, whatever. Those are all judgments that are trying to shift the responsibility for the feeling from her onto me. And, that's why it feels bad for a man to receive that, right? He doesn't want to be forced to take responsibility for something. He might choose to take responsibility for something if he hurts his woman. And I often do, right? Like if she says, I feel really disrespected right now, and I reflect and be like, oh yeah, like that was a pretty crappy thing for me to do. Or like, I didn't do it on purpose, but I was being disrespectful, or I wasn't giving you the attention that you needed, or whatever it is. And I'll reflect and be like, okay, I understand that. I'm like hearing what you're saying. I hear your feelings. I understand where they're coming from. And if it's something that I need to shift in myself because I want to fulfill a need for her, then I'll do it. And the key is, right, she's expressing without trying to get an outcome. She's not telling me what I need to do to change. She's only just expressing her feelings. So if it's something that I should change, like I've judged like internally, like this is something that should change, it makes sense for me to change it, I'll change it, because I'm free to do so. And, I love my wife, and I'm devoted to my wife, and I want her needs to be fulfilled. And so the dynamic is, she is expressing herself without outcome, and I'm leading towards an outcome. And she is, the other part of this is, by her just expressing her feelings and not telling me what to do and not criticizing me, she's respecting me as the leader in the relationship, in the dynamic. So I'm the one that's moving it forward, and she, with my leadership, and she is kind of guiding my leadership by making me understand where it needs to go without trying to make it go anywhere.
There's like two different directions I want to go at the same time now, and they're like in totally different places. But I think the first one is like the last thing that you just said. That was something that like I've been sitting with a lot lately, and I'm glad you said it, because I was like, wait, like that does it fit with what you're saying, and where does it fit? And like I think I've read it in your writings. Yet to me, it's that last thing actually. So there's almost like a bristle, like I have to give up my leadership to a man. Oh, like that's, why should I have to do that? But actually, when it comes down to it, it's actually the submissive role that's in the leadership position, but it's in an unknown, it's in the void. That's what I've been thinking of it. It's in like a negative space. It's like the feminine mystery space. And it's that feeling, that vulnerability of like, I'm allowing you to take the lead, and your lead is attuned to me. As the masculine leadership role, I'm leading where we need to go based on me feeling what she needs. So there's this reciprocity where there's actually like, there's no passive, like, oh, I'm just like at the total whim of a man. It's her feelings that is guiding the male leadership, and the male does it in the concrete plane, in the physical plane, in the concrete world. The man goes, right, we're going in this direction, because on the subtle realm, in the causal, in the non-knowing space, her feelings have said, this is where we need to go. And the man goes, oh, that's where we need to go. Okay, I'll take us there.
Yes. Yeah. And so, when I started my relationship, it's kind of funny that one of the things that really attracted me to her was just how like independent she was, and or when I first met her, how independent she was, and how, I wasn't really needed, because I was just like such a hyper independent person at this time. And I've changed so much towards interdependence. But, most women that I've dated, right, are just naturally extremely submissive, but in the way where, even if I'm not devoted to them at all, I'm just selfishly leading, I'm just doing my own thing, they'll still follow, right? And, what I liked about her is, she didn't do that. Like, she just had such a strong sense of self and like self-respect, and like, she just felt so high value to me. Like, wow, like this woman is on my level. And, I really liked that. Like, that was what I was attracted to. And the idea of, it's been interesting, like reflecting back on it, because the idea of a woman submitting based on all of my quite vast dating experiences is like, I, on one hand, like, I don't want that, because it's like, when a woman would do that, I would just slowly start to lose respect for them. And yeah, right. And yeah, like, I'd slowly lose respect for them, lose attraction for them, and I don't really want to spend time with them. Whereas I just loved spending time with my wife every day. Like, I just want to spend more time with you and get to know you and all this stuff. It was just different. But on the other hand, there is part of me where it's like, I want you to submit to me. I want to feel respected as a man and as a leader. And, so there's those two contrasting things inside of me, where it's just like, I don't want like a 1950s relationship where like a man says everything and a woman just gets steamrolled, and because that's what I thought submission was, right? Like, that was kind of my experience with dating, and that was my, that's kind of what we're conditioned to believe about submission because of media and all that stuff, and women that have been in those unhealthy dynamics. But there is such a better dynamic that's available. And that's a woman who is submissive, submissive and feminine, but she like fully recognizes her value, and she's willing to express how she feels whenever a man makes her feel something, right? And she says it in a feminine way, like that. That makes me feel really sad, or that makes me really whatever, really angry, really uncomfortable. And she's respecting herself for when she expresses those feelings. That's what it's about, right? It's about self-respect. It's about honoring how she's feeling inside. And while she's not trying to get an outcome, right? Because the intent is not to try to get an outcome, because that would be manipulative, when, that's a whole other issue in itself. But it's showing, it's communicating that, her feelings deserve to be heard, that they matter, instead of just staying in silence and allowing a man to steamroll a relationship. So a woman's an equal partner in this, right? And if a man's not respecting that, if he's not respecting how she feels, and he's not leading in a way where, it's like as if she's a full, like 100% like equal in this partnership, right? If it's not about her, if he's not leading in that responsible way, then a woman, like a healthy woman that is integrated or masculine, should not be fully submitting to that, because that's not fair. That she would be disrespecting herself to fully submit to that. But if a man is fully leading in that devoted way and truly cares and is working to become more of a man and more competent, then yeah, like, it's in her best interest to submit to that, because the masculine energy, our programming, that's what a man's gift is, so that a woman can just be in her feminine and give her best gift, not just to her man, but to herself, because it feels so good to be in that, warm, feminine, free place. Like, why
in that
why
feeling
bother,
rich,
like,
deep,
out and negotiating and leading?
yeah.
What's that?
yeah, in that like feminine, rich, deep, like lovely
Yeah,
feeling place, you know, where
yeah,
it is like, it is more like the river rather than the banks of the river, you know,
yeah.
it is more flowing, it is more expressive, you know, it does make the house look beautiful and smell beautiful and like all of those things, which are amazing gifts and qualities that I don't know how to do very well, you know,
Yeah.
like,
And the problem is that, you know, I think in our society, those traits and those gifts of the feminine are so devalued,
I
right? It just
know
like,
it,
it's
it,
not
it breaks my heart actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, women are, you know, kind of conditioned to believe that, you know, and you know, whatever a woman wants to do, you know, I'm fine with it. If that's really truly what makes her happy,
Mm,
go for it. But
mm,
you know, they're conditioned to believe that what is going to make them happy is to have like ultra successful careers and like be super driven and ambitious
mm,
and you know, have at least equal what do you like leadership role in the
mm,
relationship
mm,
rather than an equal voice, which is different.
mm.
And you know, look at the divorce rate, look at how unhappy almost every couple is, right? Because this is not natural, this goes against our programming. And it means that women's gifts are suppressed, they're
And
suppressed for her man and for herself, but they're equally important and equally beautiful.
totally. And it's like once you kind of see this, or for me, once I've seen this, it's like I can't unsee it. It just like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
like it makes so much sense. Like it's like, how can it not function in this way? Like it doesn't make any sense, you know, to not function in this way. But until you see it, it's kind of like you don't know, you know. It makes total sense to be things in another order.
yes,
What I
yeah,
what I what I was listening to before is like almost like the development of this type of possibility in relating. And you kind of you articulated it, but I want to like highlight it in that at the extreme end, a woman is submissive and a man is dominant or devotional. No, not devotional yet. He's more dominant, but the woman is submissive in a way that's non-relational. It's just kind of like she's just
mhm,
a bit limp, you know, and this is what you're encountering. And I imagine at that point in your life, you were probably pretty selfish as well. And you didn't really give that much of a shit. I don't know if that's true for you, but I imagine that's the counter energy to it, to that feeling.
like you mean when I was dating.
Yeah. Like when you're meeting these women who are kind of not really participating, there was a
Yeah.
kind of opposite feeling of, I don't really care that much either.
Yeah, so the thing is, you know, like you know, I've and I fully admit this, right? Like I've kind of been on the narcissist spectrum my
Yeah.
whole life without really realizing it.
Yeah.
And because I am actually a giver. That's the
Mm,
thing, right? I actually love giving. I've
mm,
always loved to give. It
mm,
feels so good for me to give, but you know, it had to be something that I wanted to give, right?
mm,
It had to be like it was fulfilling my needs in a way. Like for
mm,
example, in this interview would be a good example. Like this is super fun for me. I'm enjoying. I like even a couple of years ago, if I understood this information, this would be super fun for me. I love talking about this stuff. I love having an audience, even though it's kind of scary. I love giving out this information. I love energetically giving to other
mm,
people. But it wasn't the thing was it wasn't about fulfilling their needs. If it fulfilled their needs, awesome, but it was really about fulfilling my needs.
mm,
Whereas now, like this shift that's happened to me in the last year, or just over a year, it's I still have that. I still love to give and it meets my needs, but so much of my fulfillment is meeting other people's needs,
mm,
meeting the needs of women, meeting my wife's needs, right? And so because before that would just drain me a lot of the time. Like, you want that? Like,
mm,
I don't want that. No, I'm not gonna lead towards that. That's just draining and boring. But now it's like, if I hear what she wants and she's expressing without trying to get an outcome, or any woman, right? It's just
mm,
like, I want to give that to you, even though normally like that would not be fun for me at all. Like the fulfillment
mm,
comes from, I want you to be part of my inner vision here. I want you to be happy. I
mm,
want to fulfill this need for you. So yeah,
mm,
back then when I was dating, I I was like a giving person still. I was definitely a giving person. It was fun to give and it was fun to make women happy. But if it was ever something that they needed, you know, I just really wouldn't want to do it. It was just like, it was so much more just about me. So yeah, it was much more selfish leadership, even though, and I think this is part of the reason why women were so attracted to me, like, because I was like, I was energetically such a like giving person. They like felt that like I was giving to them, but it's kind of later on in a relationship, and I've only had 2 really serious relationships where a woman would recognize like, wait, he's actually kind of quite selfish. Like he's not really caring about my needs. He likes to give, but you know, he doesn't want to give to fulfill my needs.
And so, yeah, so I hear that. So there's that kind of dynamic at this stage. And then I heard there's like, where you met your wife, she was quite hyper independent, and you're a very independent person as well. So there was this sense of, so it's almost like the first stage, or I don't know if it's a stage, but the first kind of dynamic is more along the lines of the 1950s relationship to some degree, perhaps reminiscent of, where, you know, there's not really an equal partnership. A man says this, a woman does this, kind of a separation. They're together, they look like they're in this kind of submissive and leadership kind of makeup, but it's not actually very warm or close. And then there's the hyper independence, where it's like, actually, I don't actually need you, you know, I can like take care of everything on my own, you know. And then from that position of actually owning what you're saying, the masculine for a woman, and probably also for the man, I believe there's a place where we start owning more of our feminine. We learn what it's like to feel, so we can actually feel a woman. So but it's from that place, that position of sovereignty of like, I've developed my own kind of independence. I can take care of myself in the world. Now I can actually give that up to someone who's going to look after it. And so that's the choice.
Yes. Yeah. So right. And so now it's 100% about choice, right? It's about choosing to submit rather than like, I
don't have a choice, you know, I need a man to look after me or else I'm fucked, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like it doesn't have to go through that process. Like it was for me, because I was in a place where like, you know, I completely valued myself, and like I needed a woman to completely value herself. Like that was my level of development. And so, you know, if a woman was like really dependent and all that kind of stuff, like it's just not where I was. So that was what like really, really pulled me into her. And had the, like, you know, if she was expressing her feelings from the beginning instead of just holding them back or getting irritated, you know, I think it would have brought out that devotional side for me slowly. It would have been a slower process, but that would have come out. And but it didn't happen that way. But what I was going to say is it doesn't mean that 2 people need to start at that point already, right? Like there's this thing where we think, oh, we have to go off by ourselves and do all this stuff for years to become totally independent and all this stuff, and then come back and try to find someone. That's a really inefficient way of doing things, right? Of developing yourself. And I'm all about efficient development. And what I teach is, you know, forget about going off by yourself and doing a pilgrimage and like spending all this time discovering yourself. I mean, if you want to do that, great, but you can integrate this stuff so much faster. Like a man can really, regardless of whether he's working on his masculine or integrating or his feminine, and then the same thing for a woman, you can learn this so fast in a relationship dynamic if you just purposely start moving towards becoming that self. So, you know, if you're a woman, and let's say you're kind of like a doormat woman, right? Like you just don't have a strong sense of self. You just kind of allow yourself to be steamrolled. It just, you find men that are kind of narcissistic, my way or the highway kind of thing. What you can do in that dynamic, if it's not like heavily abusive, if it's heavy abusive, you know, get out of that. But if it's not that kind of dynamic, you can start saying like, I'm feeling really sad right now. Like this is making me feel sad. This is making me feel disrespected. And speaking up, right? Because women just like often don't have a voice. They just hold back and don't say anything, and then start resenting a man because he's not caring about her feelings. Well, man needs to hear what your feelings are, first of all, especially men that are not super connected to their heart yet. They need to hear it. They need to hear the actual words. They need to hear a woman taking responsibility for it. It needs to be verbal, and they need to like feel that energy and connect to her heart. And then as she does that, she starts to integrate her own masculine, right? She starts to
Like
heal
it's
that
like
place.
digesting it.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah,
It goes from the outside and then it goes for the inside, you know, where it's been sitting out here, it starts going behind the feminine.
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, that would be more like if a woman had it out there, you know, that would kind of be more like a masculinized woman, which is what she needs to do is stop speaking in masculine language and telling a man what to do and expressing from a softer place. And then for a woman who's like a doormat and doesn't say anything, she needs to do the same thing, but it's different what's happening with the masculine, right? The feminine, really doormat woman doesn't really have masculine at all. And then the masculine woman has a masculine, but she's operating through it. So it's in front of her instead of, like you're saying, integrating it behind her as like, you know, you can think of it like a computer program. You're integrating it into Windows or into Facebook instead of it being your primary operating system. Yeah. So that's the process for a woman, is just doing that over and over again until you get to the point where you can just express how you feel, and like relatively confidently. It'll always be kind of scary, but you just do it when you feel something. And if a man's not responsive to that, not receptive, just be like, you just don't submit. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing this, or I'm going to walk away right now because I don't feel heard. I don't feel comfortable. And it's not about manipulating. You don't want to get into that mindset. It's about respecting yourself and your needs, and honoring your feelings and realizing that they matter. That's how a feminine woman integrates her masculine.
What I love about this is that we're using the word submit here, which has a lot of charge to it, and it's going to bring up, and you probably get that from time to time. You get people really upset at the idea of like submission, and often because submission to them has come with a lot of wounding. You know, they've been wounded when they've submitted because they've submitted to the wrong kind of energies or whatever. But what's beautiful in what you just outlined is it's actually a deeply empowering process. This process is a process of feminine empowerment, actually.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is it's that taking responsibility for being heard and seen in our feelings, and for saying what you said earlier, they matter. This is important. I need you to feel me. That's what's most important right now. Not whatever you're doing or not doing. I actually need you to feel me.
Yeah.
And that is deep empowerment for the feminine, which is like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what feminism should have been, right? Instead of teaching women how to be men and how to operate through their masculine, it should have been about teaching women how to be healthy women with integrated masculines that, you know, respect themselves and honor themselves, and recognizing that their needs matter. It's like that's what we need to be doing, and that's what I am trying to do. It's like the core part of what I'm trying to teach is helping women become who they really are, and recognizing and honoring that part of themselves, because it's
and in relationship with men.
Yeah, well, and like this has a lot of application outside of relationships with men too, but like, you know, especially with relationships with men, not just like an intimate partner too, but like I've had a lot of people that I've worked with, a lot of women that have taken this kind of dynamic and way of expressing themselves, and just expressing themselves in general to other men in their lives, and even to other women. Pardon?
I said I've been teaching my housemates. I live with 3 women.
Yes, right.
How to speak in this way, and when they do, I get so lit up. Like one example, one of my housemates was like, there was a big pot out in the garden. We'd had a big plan, and she was like, that pot would look so beautiful on the deck. You know, I'd really love to have that here. Instantly, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna make that happen. You know, I was like super excited to make it happen.
Yeah.
But if she'd have said to me like, hey, Damien, can you get that pot and put it on the deck? I would have been inside. I would have been like, oh, fuck, another chore. I'm so busy already. Like, and I would have probably been resentful. I would have been, maybe not massively, but I would have been like, oh, like, I don't like being told what to do. You know?
Exactly. And this is like, you're pointing towards something that's so important in relationships, any relationship with a man, but especially your romantic partner, because so many women, I believe, think that men don't care about them and they don't care about their feelings because they are trying to get their needs met in this masculine way, right? And this is, my my wife had a whole bunch of built up resentment for me too. We've worked through that, and she's, processed that with me. I think she's processed all of it anyway. Where, she thought that I didn't care about how she felt because that was how I was acting. Whenever she would, tell me to do something or criticize me or whatever, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to meet your needs when I'm told what to do, or when you're criticizing me for not doing it or whatever. And there's so many relationship dynamics that are exactly like that. The women trying to get their needs met that way. And so many women who think like, this man doesn't care about how I feel. He doesn't care about my needs. And like, to be fair, there are some men that are just assholes and do not actually care about how a woman needs, what a woman needs. But I would say, I'll go out on a limb and say the majority of those relationships, the majority of those dynamics it's actually men who would devote themselves to a woman and what she needs and actually love doing it if they would just treat him with the respect that he needs to lead properly and not be told what to do and not be criticized and even things like asking, right? Because it's not just telling, right? Like, some women will actually say like, hey, go do this for me. But
I've had that before with another housemate.
Yeah.
And I really ended up hating after a while.
Yeah.
I was just like, I would seethe inside anytime I got asked to do something. You would like, my whole body would tense up and I would just be like, fuck off, stop telling me what to do.
Yeah. And that's like one of the things that I teach men, right? Is like, my focus is often, it seems, much more towards women, but like, men need to know this just as much, because if you don't understand this dynamic and you don't understand where you need to be leading a woman towards with your leadership to express herself in a way that you can receive and want and feel compelled to lead in her best interest, then what are you going to do? Like, this is the first thing that you need as a man, is to be able to lead this dynamic, to create an open flow of communication, an open flow of giving and receiving. And so once you have that, just like you said, with your housemates that you're doing, like, that's what men need to be doing. It shouldn't just be women taking responsibility for this, expressing themselves vulnerably. Of course, they should do that too, but men need to take just as much responsibility as a choice and lead women, especially lead their woman, to expressing from that place, so that they can feel like, oh, I want to move that plant for you. I want to move that pot plant. That feels so good for me to be a man and use my masculine and do that for you. And like, I just to be clear, it's not just women telling men like, hey, go do that. It's any kind of asking, even if you ask it so nicely and sweetly, like, hey, honey, can you go do this for me? That's still speaking in masculine language, right? That's so important for women to understand. Yes, it's sweet and like there's this feminine kind of air and
but inside I'm like, oh, I'm still tense.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to receive to a man, because a woman's putting that burden on him, that like, even though it's asking, it feels like a burden. It feels like being told what to do.
I liken it to like my mum. Like, I instantly, I'm like, my mum's giving me a chore to do.
Yes, yeah, that's what it feels like for man. Like, you can't be in that leadership role where it feels like you're giving a gift when you're being told what to do, even if you're being asked nicely what to do. It feels terrible. It feels actually really terrible. And men, like, this is such a problem for men. They feel so powerless, because like, before I started learning this with my wife, she would be, I had a son, and we were, there's so many things that had to be done, right? Like, changing diapers and filling bottles and cleaning up, and man, it's crazy, all the things that need to be done. And she would sometimes be telling me what to do, sometimes be asking. I actually started by leading her to ask me really nicely, right, before I knew this stuff. And I'm like, this still feels terrible. And I was thinking in my head, like, okay, I'm just fucked as a person. Like, she has all this stuff that she needs to be doing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like she's so stressed and everything. Why am I such a selfish piece of crap that hates being asked nicely to do things for her? Like, why am I'm a bad person. I'm a bad husband. Like, I really started to feel that. But every time that she asked me, even if it was nicely, it's just like, oh, okay, I'll do it because I know it's the right thing to do, and I know you need this, and I know my son needs this, but inside I don't want to do it, and it's killing me inside to do it. But good men will want to do that because they know it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't feel good
And
to do
slowly
it.
there's a separation is going to occur in the relationship. The connection is going to be more and more strained and less
Yeah,
intimate. Yeah. So what
yeah.
I got like two things, but just to go back to the example you're giving there about like all the things that needed to be done to take care of your son, how would how could she have expressed herself in a way that, like, what are some examples, like some literal sentence examples, like say she needed help changing a diaper or preparing the milk for the bottle or something like that? What could she literally say that would be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do that?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to take this opportunity to promote my group here,
Uh-huh.
because this is what I work. This, like, publicly, most of what I'm doing is just talking in more broad-based concept dynamics, all that kind of stuff,
Mm,
right? Like the
mm,
big picture,
mm,
the just how this kind of looks in general. Like, it's all
mm,
very general focused.
mm,
But what I've done is I've started a private group. It's paid subscription group. It's $66 US. It's $88 Canadian, and it's per
mm,
month.
mm,
Cancel at any time. But what we do is we get really specific, right? Because
mm,
it's one
mm,
thing to have all these general concepts and be
mm,
like, oh yeah,
mm,
that sounds really nice. That sounds like a fantasy. But then when you really get down to it in the real world, in your real life, in your real relationship, and a real situation comes up, like there's a dirty diaper or whatever it is, it's like, oh, how the hell do I become this devoted masculine man and lead a woman? Like, what is she supposed to be saying? And a woman, like, what the hell? What? And this diaper needs to be changed, right? Like, what do I do? So in this group, we get really specific, and these, like, I encourage women to bring up these examples so that we can talk about them. How do we? How? What do you do when a man um, isn't texting you as much as you want? Or what do you do when a man is leaving his dirty shoes on the ground, or like leaving his clothes all over the place, or keeps forgetting to make a child's lunch if he needs to, if that's what he's doing to help out, whatever, if he said he's going to do that. How do you deal with those situations, right? Because now it's in the moment. There's no conceptual theorizing. You need to be expressing in a specific way, and that's what we really do, is help women get in touch with that feminine side, express in that feminine way, and bring the conceptual into concrete so that you can start applying it. And women start applying it in the group. We've actually had several women that have had massive experiences of healing themselves, and just going through a huge healing process by
mm,
tapping into how they feel and communicating their feelings. It's incredible. And so, in answer to your question, I know I spent a few minutes promoting that, but
correct.
if there's something like you know, let's say a woman is feeling stressed with all the stuff that she has to do, with the diapers and the bottles and all that stuff. She just says, like, I'm feeling, here's an example, like, I'm feeling so stressed right now. Like, I just feel overwhelmed with all the things that I have to be doing with our child. And then a man can lead from there and be like, oh, okay, I didn't know you felt that way. what is, he could either like just take something like, hey, I'm going to start doing the bottles for you or whatever, or he can ask like, okay, what is the thing that would really help you out, to take some stress off your shoulders, and I'll start doing that for you, because that now feels good, right? Like, she didn't tell him what to do, she didn't ask, she just expressed how she felt from the heart, how this situation is making her feel. I feel really stressed, I feel really whatever.
Mm.
Doing it without outcome. And now the man steps in, he leads, and he's like, oh, I feel good to take responsibility for this. I want to make my woman feel good.
Mm.
What do you need me to do? Or I'm going to do this. And then it feels good for him. It feels like, oh, I'm the hero. I'm stepping in as the hero. And making my woman feel good. Men, like any man that's not like a true narcissist or extremely damaged, is going to feel great about doing that. I love doing that for my wife. Totally.
I get it. Like I'm the same. Like, I love the opportunity to win and to get it right, you know, and to do the good thing. It fucking, like, when I make a joke of myself, I love making fun of myself, but whenever it happens and like something like that happens, I'll be like, you know, either to myself or sometimes loud enough for others people, I'll be like, I'm a man. I'm a man. I like doing shit. And I do. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Solving problems, you know, fixing things,
Yeah.
and solving problems, like, make me feel like a man.
Yeah. Men
Totally
need
does.
to be able to fix those problems. That's what
Yeah.
our masculine is geared towards, fixing things and making things better. We love doing that. That's why so many men like fixing cars or building sheds or whatever it is. We're creating, we're building, we're fixing.
It feels so good.
Yeah, it feels so good. And it would feel so good in our relationships too, if only we knew what the hell we were doing. Because just like women, men aren't trained to be leaders in this way, especially emotional leadership, to emotional social leadership, to lead a woman to her feelings. And where the hell is that taught? We're too busy learning fractions and learning completely useless things that we're never going to learn, never going to need. Whereas this is the stuff that's like so transformative, that creates healthy, loving relationships the way that they were always meant to be.
So it's like I hear it. It's like when a woman is expressing that example of like, I'm so stressed and overwhelmed, it's like the feminine is giving up the idea that she knows what the answer is. Like, she's giving up. It's like, I can feel I have the impact of whatever the problem is, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer to this puzzle is. Like, I have no idea, only that it's stressing me out, or it's bothering me, it's upsetting me, it's hurting me, it's doing something to me. Yes. And that's it. And so it's like surrendering or submitting the knowing what needs to be done. I don't know what needs to be done. I just know that something needs to be done. And then you give that to the man, and the man goes, sometimes, depending on how he processes information and what he does, he's going to take that and go, fuck, all right, I'm going to find a solution to that. And that solution may be like, what do you need most help with? That may be one approach that some men will be more inclined towards. Another man would be like, right, I'm going to do this. Another man would be like, fuck, I'm just going to hug you. I'm just like going to take you in my arms and hold you. Like, it just depends on the individual. But it's like, oh, that's something I can do something about, But when you instruct, when you say how it's supposed to be, there's no, I might as well be a robot that you program. I'm not here. I'm not doing anything. I'm just following orders.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I teach when breaking down this feminine masculine communication. What are the specifics? How do we do this concretely? A woman is expressing the problem, right? So the problem could just be, or part of it anyway. And sometimes all of it is just her feelings. And sometimes the solution is just to be there for her feelings and just hold those feelings and like lead her towards fully expressing them. And some of the time, the problem is more concrete, like, there's all these friggin' diapers that need to be changed, and I'm feeling stressed about them. And then, so she's just expressing that problem. And then, the masculine is leading towards outcome by finding solutions. Okay, I'm going to start doing the bottles for you, or I'm going to start doing whatever. so that you're less stressed, because I can see how much this is wearing on you, and I have this time, or I'll take this time to do this. I'm coming up with a solution that is going to work for you. And that, yeah, that's what the masculine likes doing, is figuring out the future solution, right? The masculine is future oriented. The feminine is like past or like currently, like present oriented, talking about how the feelings are actually being felt right now, or how the feelings were felt. And the masculine is thinking, how can I make these feelings be a lot better and put a huge smile on my woman's face in the future.
Totally, I get that. And so what does, we've heard from one side, what does a man do if he's with a woman and she either doesn't know how to do this, or isn't ready to do it, or is too scared to like relate in this way, that she's in this kind of more masculine operation of doing things? How does a man respond to that? You gave one like clue earlier where you were like, the way you were talking about relating to your wife, that you just asked like, how are you feeling? Like, what are you actually feeling? What are you experiencing right now? So is that it? Like I was thinking, because I ponder about this too, amongst other things. It's almost like saying no to the masculine while saying yes to the feminine, like something like that. Like, no, I'm not going to, like a woman's in critical mode, or she's saying, I want you to do this. Can you go do this thing for me? How does a man turn it so it's back to the right a relationship that's going to feel good, rather than just be like, no, I'm not going to do that, or like do it and fucking grumble about it, or get in a massive fight about it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a great question. So first of all, yeah, that's a huge part of it, is asking how a woman feels. Whenever you notice that she's feeling something, ask her then. Lead by having this conversation with a woman. Just say like how it makes, like, you know, I would say like, it just pushes me away. And I've said this, like, I feel really pushed away when you ask this way. I want you to like tell me how you feel. And you know, a man can explain all this dynamic to her, right? And it just depends how receptive she is, right? Like it was a difficult process for my wife and I, because she just thought like, she had that kind of 1950s submissive thing as well, and you know, it was a process for her. But a man, this is, think of it, this is problem solving again, right? You have a inner vision of a solution of what you want your relationship dynamic to look like. How are you going to lead towards it? You need to figure out a problem, figure out a solution, just like you figure out a solution for fixing your car, or fixing your dishwasher, or fixing your career, or whatever it is. It's the same kind of thing. But more concretely, yeah, putting your foot down and just saying like, no, like I don't like being asked that way, or like, no, I'm not gonna do this when you're talking to me this way. The first most important thing is never do anything for a woman when she is like, you can feel that criticism and blame, and she's trying to tell you what to do, because I'm not going to do that. And don't do it. Don't say it meanly, right? Like, don't judge her back. That's unnecessary. Like, you can do it with love, but like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. And be firm about it. Because I won't do that. But I want to hear your feelings. Like, tell me how you feel.
She's probably going to feel something after you tell her, no, I'm not going to do that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a process, right? And it's so important to remain centered in this and don't get reactive.
Yeah, I want to hear your feelings. Yeah, you're fucking pissed off at me.
I did do that once with my wife, where it was bad, where I was like trying to lead her towards her feelings, but like I was so angry about it, like, just tell me your feelings, right? And that didn't work, by the way. Actually caused a huge fight. But yeah, like, you have to be loving but firm about this, and just let her know, like, if you want me to, you know, the message is like, if you want me to care about you and care about your needs and do things for you, I need to be talked to in a certain way. So tell me how you feel. Like, tell me how you feel. Let's talk about this. I genuinely want to know how you feel, but I need to hear it the right way. I'm I'm going to stop for 1 sec. So I think my wife works in the other room, and she has to take a call in a few minutes. If you want to keep talking about this is fine. I will just need to switch to my phone and go in
Well,
the
I actually
room.
think it's pretty good time to wrap up. Like I feel like we've explored a lot of territory and it's really good. Have you got
Great.
like a couple of minutes to just kind of wrap up, or it
I
needs to
got
happen
about
right now?
3 minutes, I think.
3 minutes. Okay, see what I can do in 3 minutes. So essentially what I'm hearing and what I love about this model is it's really basic, but not basic in a way like to undermine the elegance of it. It's not,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that in that way. When I say basic, I mean that it's like foundational. There's like foundational principles here that lots of stuff can be built on top of. You know, I teach stuff as well. And the main course that I teach, I refer to all the time as being basic, because we can't do the deeper stuff without this. Doesn't mean that it's not deep and complex and elegant and has a lot of richness to it. And you can take it so far, yet it's so foundational that without this, you can't have a truly co-creative relationship between a man and woman. You can't go into kind of more amazing territories where we don't fucking know yet as a species what's possible. You know, that's the stuff that I'm really excited about. And that's why I love the foundational stuff, because without it, everything else is fucking fantasy. We're in
Yep.
dreamland, imagining stuff that could be possible when all we do is fight, you know. We can't go into these places when all we do is fight. We actually have to land in how do we navigate day-to-day life and day-to-day love and romance together in a way that feels so good that we're not in stress and overwhelm and blown out all the time. Now we can start creating. Now
Yep.
we can start doing something real.
This is
So
the gateway.
it's the gateway. And that's what I'm hearing about it, you know, and that's what, like, I can hear this foundational principle to it. And so, like, I like that and I appreciate that. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's been a pleasure, you know. We've got 1 minute.
Yeah.
Great to chat with you. And I will, in the show notes, what's your website quickly?
Yeah, so it's relationshipofyourdreams.com,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find all my coaching stuff, all my articles, my videos on there. You can find the link to my group, my private paid group, which is it's cheap, affordable, and amazing to really get you started as well. And you can also find me on Facebook. So it's just my page is also relationship of your dreams. Relationship of your dreams. There's a additional part after that, but just type that into the search bar and you'll find me for sure.
Sweet. Relationshipofyourdreams.com. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Zach. It's
Thank you for
definitely been helpful for me reading your stuff, so I really appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, this was an awesome chat. This was a lot of fun. So thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
See
Bye
you,
now.
mate.